Well, you clicked on it. Welcome in. I'm here to help. Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Chris. This is Wallowa Hikes, a channel for new backpackers. And today I want to talk about some of the things that I've learned over about 25 years of backpacking that have made my life easier out there. Things that new backpackers don't necessarily know, and some of the stuff in this video may be helpful and new to experienced backpackers as well. In all of that time, I learned a lot of these things the hard way, and I'm here to keep you from having to learn them that way. So let's get right into some of these tips, tricks, hacks, whatever you want to call them, backpacking secrets, things you might not know that are going to make your life easier out there. So let's start with the first thing, which is before you even leave your house for this backpacking trip, any backpacking trip, you're going to want to think ahead. So at the end of the trip, you're probably going to be hungry and thirsty. And I find personally that as I get closer to the trailhead at the end of a trip, I don't like to stop and filter water. And because of that, a lot of times when I get to the car, I don't have any water left on me. So I learned really quickly that I needed to have something waiting for me at the car. So usually I will put a bottle of Powerade, maybe an extra bottle of water, depending on how long that trip was, and some snacks. So that way, when I get to the car, I can hydrate, get a little food in me before that drive home. And while you're at it, it's a great idea to put fresh clothes in the car because you're going to be pretty grubby, and it's really nice to have some clean socks, some comfortable shorts or pants, just clean clothes so you feel a little better on that drive home. Now, having said that, if you're in bear country, somewhere like Yosemite, it's a terrible idea to leave food in your car at the trailhead because those bears are accustomed to breaking into cars and destroying them just to get that Snickers bar. So in places like that, there's usually bear lockers, and you can leave food and water in there waiting for you when you get back. People are pretty good about not stealing other people's food, but otherwise, just leave it in your car, probably out of sight. You don't want to tempt anybody to break into your car, but it's really great to have those things waiting for you at the end of a trip, because sometimes it's quite a long drive before you get to that cheeseburger. Now, another tip that I've learned actually fairly recently, don't know why I didn't think about it before, but once you get to camp, you know you're probably going to have to poop in the woods at some point. So standard practice is go dig a hole and poop in the hole, cover it up. But sometimes that urge is going to strike suddenly, and if you have time, just go and dig that hole after you've set up camp. That way it's waiting for you, so if that backpacking food doesn't agree with you and you suddenly have to go, you don't have to stress out trying to dig a hole before you poop your pants. Now, something you might have learned about in all of your research is to have calorie-dense foods, things that are light but full of calories. You also may be backpacking somewhere where you can start a fire. And if you don't have a lot of experience with that, sometimes it's helpful to have a fire starter. But it's also important to have things that serve two purposes. Try bringing Fritos. If you don't like Fritos, you can use potato chips or whatever, but Fritos are high in calories, they're fairly light, and if you hold a match or a lighter to a Frito, it's going to work as a fire starter. So, go try it out. Another thing that serves dual purpose is Leukotape. So a lot of people will take moleskin in case they get blisters. Now, Leukotape, you put that over a blister, it's going to work beautifully, just like moleskin, but it's really going to stick. It also serves a purpose that you can repair tears in your equipment. You can do all kinds of things with this. And instead of bringing a giant roll of Leukotape, what I do is I will wrap it around something. Now, I bring a mechanical pencil and a notebook with me, tiny little notebook, just to journal while I'm out there and record my journey. So I'll wrap that around the pencil. So I always know where it is. It's easy to get to. But if you don't bring something like that, you can wrap it around a trekking pole or whatever. Anyway, Leukotape, it's a godsend out there. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. So here's something you might not have thought about. At sea level, water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. But as you gain elevation, that temperature changes. If you're backpacking at 5,200 feet in elevation, water's going to boil at 201 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you get up to 10,000 feet in elevation, it's going to boil at an even lower temperature, 194 degrees. Now, why is this important? Because at higher elevation, once that water starts to boil and you put it in your backpacking meal, it's not going to be at the high temperature that you're accustomed to. And because of that, your meals are going to take longer. So if you're cooking food, you're going to have to cook it longer. And if you're just boiling water and putting it into a freeze-dried meal, you're going to want to let that soak longer. Otherwise, it's going to be like you didn't let it soak long enough at a normal temperature. So you're going to get all those crunchy bits. So the higher you go, the longer you want to let that go. Now here's one that always kind of confused me when I would watch YouTube videos of people on trips, even big YouTubers along the Pacific Crest Trail. And that is that using a Sawyer type water filter, or a squeeze filter, I always see these people really struggling with keeping it over the container they're trying to put it into. So squeezing one end and trying to hold that level and over a little hole of a smart water bottle. And you see it shake and go everywhere. And I've done this as well. Get your shoes all wet because you're trying to stabilize this bottle in between your 2 feet, because otherwise it's going to tip over and you're shooting water left and right unless you have a really steady hand. So here's a simple fix that I figured out really quickly that I see a lot of people don't do. So if you're using a Sawyer squeeze or one of the new Sawyer minis that has threads on both ends, if it comes with the coupler, put that on the end that goes out. That screws right onto your filter. The other end of that coupler threads right onto a standard smart water bottle. So thread both ends. Now what you don't want to do is thread it tightly onto the bottle that you're squeezing water into, because it's going to form a vacuum and the water will eventually be harder to squeeze into there. So if you put it on loosely, you're going to let air escape and you're not going to knock it over. You don't have to stabilize it with your feet. You don't have to aim perfectly. It's a simple fix. So, and the coupler weighs next to nothing. So absolutely a time saver and saves you a lot of frustration. Now you noticed when I was demonstrating that water flow was really, really slow. Why is that? Well, I haven't used that filter this year. I backflushed it when I was done with my last trip and I stored it away waiting for the next year. So when I got it out, there was almost no flow whatsoever. And I was a little perplexed because it worked just fine last year. So the reason for that is twofold. One is that you get minerals in those filters and they crystallize, and that causes them not to flow well. Also, when they dry out, they're not saturated with water. So when you try to put new water through them, they're bone dry and they're just not going to flow. So a lot of people will throw away the filter and buy a new one. But you can avoid that. So with that Sawyer filter, I soaked it in hot water and left it overnight so it would get nice and wet inside and flow just fine. And it didn't. So I let it go another night. And it still had just a slow trickle. So one thing you can do instead of throwing it away and buying a new one, soak your squeeze filter in a mixture of half vinegar, half water. Hot water is preferable. Soak that overnight and then give it a try the next day. I know it sounds gross. You're going to want to flush that through a few times so you get rid of that kind of vinegary smell. But after soaking it in half vinegar, half water overnight, the flow vastly improved, and now it's just like new. Now, if you have a different style filter, like what I'm currently using, a Katadyn B-Free, now those, you don't flush them, you just shake them when they start to not flow well. But these will also dry out, and people tend to get frustrated and never buy that brand again because it stops working after 1 year. And again, generally all that's wrong is that it's dried out. So you can soak your Katadyn B-Free filter overnight before a trip and test it out. And again, if that doesn't work, which it typically will, you can also try the vinegar trick. All right, so if you've been following my channel for a while, you know I talk way too much. So we're gonna cut it off right there. And hopefully in the future, I can share some more tips and tricks with you. But hopefully, if you're a new backpacker, this is gonna save you some time and frustration out there. And if you're not a new backpacker, maybe you learned something today. So I wanna thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.